Roman DeLuca fired the deaf nurse at 8:04 p.m. At 8:07, every hospital alarm went silent. Administrators mocked Tessa Monroe for insisting danger should be seen, felt, and recorded instead of trusted to sound alone. They called her redundant and unfit for a VIP floor where powerful patients expected quiet. Then monitors stopped escalating, fire doors failed to signal, and Roman's mother vanished from a room still showing green. Tessa held the calibration certificate, proving the system had passed when she left, but using it meant returning to the men who erased her authority and blamed her deafness. If she walked away, the national safety job waiting in Denver would give her the future she earned. If she returned, she had 19 minutes to find which silent alert was real before an insider attack transferred control of every DeLuca clinic. Roman once believed she could not hear danger coming. Now she was the only person who could see where it had already entered. Tessa Monroe felt the first emergency through the floor. She had reached the hospital parking garage when 3 elevators stopped almost simultaneously beneath her feet. The vibration pattern differed from ordinary evening traffic. One car halted between levels, another returned to the lobby, and the service lift remained still. Her wrist receiver should have displayed corresponding system alerts. The screen remained blank. Tessa looked through the glass entrance toward DeLuca Memorial Hospital. Nurses moved normally across the bright VIP lobby. No warning lights flashed above the elevators. The building believed nothing had happened. 7 minutes earlier, Chief Operating Officer Lydia DeLuca had terminated Tessa's position as clinical safety nurse. Roman DeLuca stood beside his sister and approved the decision. They accused Tessa of disrupting private care with excessive visual alarms, vibration checks, and redundant evacuation drills. One donor complained that a flashing bedside indicator made the hospital look industrial. Another said the deaf nurse projected her limitations onto people who could hear perfectly well. Lydia converted prejudice into efficiency language. Roman accepted it because quiet floors looked controlled. Security removed Tessa's badge, while administrators watched from the mezzanine. No one mentioned that she had spent 6 years integrating bedside alerts, visual signals, vibration receivers, maintenance records, and human confirmation across the hospital. Her labor became visible only when it stopped. Tessa turned back toward the entrance. The guard blocked her with one hand. "Your access ended at 8:04, he said slowly and loudly. She read his lips and answered in her normal voice. Speaking louder does not restore the building alarms. The guard looked toward his desk monitor. Every status icon remained green. Tessa pointed to the stalled elevator display. "Call engineering by radio and confirm the service lift physically." He refused to take instructions from a terminated employee. Tessa used the public emergency phone beside the entrance and reported a possible elevator fault. The call operator said the hospital system showed no alarm. "That is the emergency," Tessa replied. Roman crossed the lobby after seeing security surround her. His black suit remained open at the collar, revealing the edge of a tattoo across his chest. "You were instructed to leave," he said. "Your elevators generated no local alerts when they stopped. Engineering says the system is normal. Did they inspect the cause or read the same screen?" He paused. Tessa felt another vibration through the tiled floor. This one came from the pneumatic fire doors testing their locks. No visual indicator appeared. "Your alarm network is reporting green without verifying devices," she said. "Someone has separated the display from the physical building." Lydia approached with Engineering Director Calvin Ross. Ross held a tablet showing perfect system health. "The dismissed nurse is creating panic," he said. Tessa asked him to open the raw device audit. He said only engineering could interpret it, then interpret why Elevator 6 stopped between floors without generating a local or remote event. Ross claimed maintenance had placed it offline. Tessa asked for the work order. He produced one carrying her electronic approval at 8:06. Her badge had been disabled 2 minutes earlier. The timestamp was impossible. Roman saw the conflict. "Who can use her approval after termination?" Ross blamed delayed synchronization. Tessa removed a folded document from her bag. It was the original alarm calibration certificate she had completed with an external inspector that afternoon. Every elevator, fire, door, bedside alarm, and visual receiver passed independent testing at 340p. The paper carried the inspector's embossed seal and handwritten device totals. It could not be rewritten through the hospital network. The certificate was the main proof that failure began after a verified baseline. It also demonstrated Tessa's authority to explain how the system should behave. Lydia reached for it. Tessa stepped back. Independent custody first. Roman called Lieutenant Naomi Brooks, the city safety investigator listed on the certificate. Ross objected that outside police would frighten patients. Silent alarms should frighten them more, Tessa said. Then a nurse ran from the VIP elevator, carrying an empty wheelchair. Roman's mother, Roman DeLuca, had disappeared from her cardiac suite. Her bedside exit alarm showed green. The corridor camera showed no movement. Tessa asked which staff member last saw her. The nurse, named Lydia. Roman turned toward his sister. Lydia lifted both hands. Mother asked for privacy. Tessa checked the physical door contact from the public corridor without entering the room. Its indicator had been covered by a thin green film matching the normal light. The alarm had not failed. Someone had hidden its warning while the central screen displayed a false normal state. Ross's tablet suddenly filled with red alerts. Every alarm in the hospital activated at once. The flood of warnings made it impossible to distinguish which patient was truly in danger. Nurses began responding to the loudest rooms while silent devices on the cardiac floor remained unattended. Tessa saw the predictable consequence of trusting intensity instead of verification. She asked Dr. Chen to establish a paper priority board in the lobby where every floor could report direct patient checks. Roman looked toward the red screens and approved Tessa's request. Within minutes, transporters carried written confirmations from elevators, fire doors, bedside monitors, and medication rooms. The board revealed that several frightening alarms belonged to empty rooms, while Elena's suite remained falsely calm. She translated conflicting safety information until Dr. Chen formally assumed command. One night cleaner reported a green film discarded near the family elevator. Security had ignored her because she was not clinical staff. Tessa asked Brooks to record the cleaner's observation and preserve the film as potential evidence. The woman who emptied waste bins had noticed the trace executives stepped over. That small act exposed the same hierarchy behind Tessa's firing. The hospital depended on workers whose warnings became credible only after a powerful person repeated them. Roman listened, while Tessa credited the cleaner by name. His expression showed recognition, arriving later than the danger. The alarm flood created the illusion of information while removing every useful priority. Ross ordered staff to silence the system until engineering regained control. Tessa stopped him verbally before he reached the global command. Muting the display will also erase the time sequence investigators need. Roman told Ross to step away from the console. He asked Tessa what the hospital should do instead. Shift to physical verification by clinical zone, she said. No patient is moved, discharged, or assumed safe because a screen is green. Dr. Maya Chen, the medical director on duty, took clinical command. She divided nursing teams by floor and required direct bedside confirmation. Security officers checked fire doors and elevators under city emergency procedure. Tessa remained a public witness until Brooks arrived and documented her temporary advisory role. She did not reclaim access simply because the crisis made her useful. The calibration certificate entered police custody inside a sealed sleeve. Its device list allowed teams to compare every physical alarm against the afternoon baseline. Elevator 6 contained 2 transport workers between floors. Firefighters released them without injury. 3 bedside alarms displayed false red states. 1 cardiac room displayed green despite a disconnected lead. The contradictory failures followed no ordinary equipment pattern. Someone was generating central status separately from device reality. Roman focused on locating Elena. Her implanted monitor still transmitted a signal somewhere inside the hospital, but the network placed it in 6 rooms at once. Tessa asked for the raw receiver strengths rather than the mapped locations. She could not hear audible alarms, but she had spent years interpreting visual timing, vibration signatures, and device routes, overlooked by staff who trusted sound. The strongest signal came from the old hydrotherapy wing beneath the rehabilitation floor. That wing had been closed for renovation and removed from the public hospital map. Lydia said their mother never visited it. Tessa asked whether anyone could reach it through the private family elevator. Ross answered too quickly. That elevator is offline. Its work order carried Tessa's impossible approval. Roman understood. The false maintenance record had concealed a live route. Brooks sent city officers, Dr. Chen, and a clinical response team toward hydrotherapy. Tessa provided the old layout from memory while remaining behind the entry line. The private elevator opened into a service corridor where visual alarms had been covered with green film. Officers found Elena inside a therapy room, awake but disoriented beside a portable monitor transmitting 6 false locations. Dr. Chen took control of her care. Elena said a technician told her Roman requested a private cardiac scan before the evening board vote. She followed because the man wore Ross's engineering badge. His surgical mask concealed his face. The technician left when Elena questioned the closed wing. Her room door locked behind him, and no alarm reached staff. The plan did not require immediate physical harm. It required Elena to become unavailable during a vote controlling the DeLuca clinic network. At midnight, her deciding trustee authority would transfer temporarily to Lydia. The deadline explained the timing. Lydia denied arranging the scan. Roman asked why she was the last family member inside Elena's suite. I delivered the trustee documents Mother requested. Elena said she requested no documents. Brooks preserved both statements without choosing between them. Ross attempted to leave through the renovation corridor. City officers stopped him carrying a portable alarm gateway inside his tool case. He said it was required for diagnosis. Tessa identified its serial number on the calibration certificate. The gateway belonged in the central safety lab and had passed testing there at 340. Its removal connected the verified system to the later false status flood. Ross still might have moved it under another person's direction, but his custody required explanation. Brooks suspended his access and collected the tool case. Lydia accused Tessa of staging the crisis to regain her job. She pointed toward the calibration certificate. That nurse signed the system hours before it failed. Tessa answered through the interpreter Brooks had called for complex group communication. The certificate proves what passed when it passed and which device count existed. It does not grant me remote access after termination. Dr. Chen confirmed Tessa's badge had been disabled before the first false work order. Lydia shifted to another attack. She said Tessa's deafness made her dependent on visual systems and biased against the hospital's quieter design. Roman looked toward the covered indicator beside his mother's locked door. Her design found the danger yours concealed. It was the first public correction he made, though it did not erase his earlier decision. Elena entered the cardiac unit under independent observation. Before leaving hydrotherapy, Tessa noticed a vibration receiver strapped beneath the therapy bed. It carried her employee number and a scheduled message. At 9:00 p.m., it would transmit a false evacuation acknowledgement under her name. The conspirators intended to show that Tessa received the alarm and ignored it. Her disability was not merely the excuse used to fire her, it was the mechanism chosen to frame her. Then all red alerts vanished from the central network. One message replaced them. Evacuation confirmed by Tessa Monroe. Across the hospital fire, doors began locking, with patients still inside. The paper verification board in the lobby became the only reliable map of occupied zones. Tessa watched information regain, meaning once every report required a person, place, time, and physical confirmation. Roman saw that the hospital had not replaced her work after firing her. It had simply assumed the system would continue without the woman maintaining its agreements. When she stopped, green icons remained while reality separated beneath them. That consequence transformed invisible labor into operational authority no title could manufacture overnight. The false evacuation acknowledgement converted every locked door into an action attributed to Tessa. Dr. Chen ordered staff to use physical fire compartment procedure and keep patients in verified safe zones. Firefighters operated doors through independent emergency controls while forensic staff preserved the false message. Tessa asked Brooks to compare its timestamp with the body camera showing her inside hydrotherapy. The records overlapped perfectly. Her physical presence did not prevent someone using her digital identity, but it proved she had not confirmed a hospital-wide evacuation from the control room. Roman wanted Ross questioned immediately. Brooks reminded him that the engineer had requested counsel. The investigation would not become a private interrogation because the victim owned the building. Roman accepted the limit and supported city control. Tessa watched him follow procedure when command would have felt easier. That movement from mispricing toward reliance mattered more than an apology spoken during panic. The hospital restored patient access within 12 minutes. No critical care was interrupted, but 2 operating rooms delayed procedures, and the emergency department diverted ambulances. The system failure threatened an entire clinical network rather than one family. Lydia's planned trustee vote would decide whether the smaller DeLuca clinics were sold to Meridian Health Logistics. Meridian would close night services and transfer alarm maintenance to a company owned by Ross's brother. Lydia received a consulting payment if the transaction passed. Ross gained control of the new maintenance contract. Elena's temporary incapacity would supply Lydia's deciding vote. The beneficiary deadline and access path now aligned. What remained uncertain was who designed the sabotage and which insider wore Ross's badge in hydrotherapy. Brooks examined the portable gateway under warrant. Its event log showed a remote command from Lydia's executive tablet at 7:58 p.m. Lydia claimed Ross borrowed the tablet during the termination meeting. Roman remembered seeing it beside him on the conference table. Either could have used it. Tessa asked who proposed firing her at exactly 8:04. Lydia drafted the termination. Ross supplied a report calling the redundant alarms wasteful, and Roman approved it. Removing Tessa before 8:07 eliminated the only employee expected to compare physical signals with central status. Roman's decision was not separate from the plot. It was the opening the plot required. "I gave them the 7 minutes," he said. Tessa met his eyes. "You gave them my authority before you gave them the time." He did not defend himself. Brooks requested the external inspector, who signed the calibration certificate. Inspector Helen Park confirmed every listed device passed at 340 and said, Tessa insisted on testing the private family elevator despite Ross's objection. Park retained an independent photograph of the gateway secured inside the safety lab. At 5:12, Ross emailed her asking for a revised certificate, excluding the gateway because it was training equipment. Park refused. The certificate's unchanged device count preserved the trace. Its plot function linked the stolen gateway to the manufactured alert failure. Its character function proved Tessa understood redundancy and documentation before crisis made either valuable. Hospital counsel offered Tessa immediate reinstatement. She declined. "Restoring my badge inside a compromised network gives the saboteur another identity to use." She requested a paper consultant credential and an interpreter for every command meeting. Roman approved both without treating accommodation as a favor. At 11:00 p.m., the National Center for Clinical Safety called Tessa about an application she submitted months earlier. They offered her a Denver-based director position overseeing multimodal alarm standards across 12 hospitals. The salary exceeded DeLuca Memorial's offer. Relocation housing was included, and her authority would not depend on Lydia or Roman. Tessa accepted. Her flight left the following evening. The freedom exit was real, beneficial, and available before the climax. Roman saw the confirmation email when she printed it from the public station. "You are leaving," he said. "Yes. I cannot ask you to stay after what happened. You can ask. You cannot attach my job, safety, or authority to the answer." He nodded. "Then I will not ask." The autonomy respect cost him the person now holding the system together. Tessa remained only until Elena's vote patient safety and the workers named in the false alarm record were protected. She made that boundary explicit. At 1124, the control network restored one archived camera from the termination conference. The video showed Ross place Lydia's tablet beside Roman. It also showed a third person entering after Tessa left. Dr. Chen recognized him as Julian Cross Meridian's regional acquisition director. Cross leaned toward the tablet while Ross blocked the camera. Lydia remained in the room and watched. The footage connected all three to access but did not reveal what Cross entered. Then the video skipped 17 seconds. When it resumed, Cross held Tessa's disabled badge. The badge should have been inside security custody downstairs. The security officer who collected it was now missing. Brooks asked Tessa whether the missing badge could explain every false approval. "It explains access to my identity, not knowledge of every device and deadline," she said. "The plot still requires engineering, control, executive authority, and a reason to remove my oversight." Roman asked whether she would have detected the sabotage earlier if he had not fired her. "I might have seen the first conflict at 806, she said. "That does not make me responsible for what the saboteurs chose at 807. Tessa returned responsibility to the people who designed the failure. The alarm network needed reform because no institution should depend on one worker being impossible to remove. Her value came from competence, but real safety required distributing that competence rather than turning her into another single point of failure. Dr. Chen supported the conclusion and requested a temporary cross-disciplinary command team. For the first time, nursing, engineering, accessibility, transport, fire safety, and patient advocacy received equal seats. The missing officer was Samuel Reed, a 19-year hospital employee who had challenged Ross's maintenance practices twice. His personnel file now showed voluntary resignation at 810. The signature belonged to a form uploaded after the alarm failure began. Tessa recognized the pattern. Workers who preserved inconvenient facts were removed from the system before their testimony could gain authority. Brooks traced Reed's last radio signal to the basement loading dock. City officers found his uniform jacket and phone inside an abandoned security cart. The dock camera showed him entering a Meridian service van with Cross. It did not show whether he entered voluntarily. The van left toward the DeLuca Northside Clinic, where night-shift cardiac patients depended on the same alarm network. Tessa asked whether Northside had received the false evacuation acknowledgement. Its central screen showed normal operation. "No," employee answered the control phone. The clinic might already be physically isolated from its display. Brooks sent police and fire personnel, while Dr. Chen coordinated independent clinical support. Roman offered helicopters and private teams. Tessa asked him to keep family security outside the site unless public command requested assistance. He agreed. She traveled in the clinical command vehicle because she had designed Northside's visual and vibration alarm routes. Her Denver contract remained inside her bag. The choice to assist did not cancel the choice to leave. Northside appeared quiet from the street. Lobby screens displayed green status and recorded every patient as resting. Through an upper window, Tessa saw a red visual alarm flashing in a treatment room. The physical device was active, while the central screen denied it. Firefighters entered under emergency authority. They found 7 patients and 4 staff members locked inside separate zones. Local audible alarms functioned in some rooms, but visual vibration and central escalation had been selectively interrupted. The sabotage targeted redundancy rather than one sensory channel. Tessa refused the simplified story that deaf design alone saved the clinic. Safety came from multiple modes, checking one another. Inside the control room, officers found Reed bound but conscious beside the stolen badge. Cross had forced him to enter maintenance codes under threat, then left through the ambulance bay. Reed said Lydia promised the clinic would be empty before Meridian's test. When patients remained, Cross continued anyway. Ross supplied the gateway configuration and planned to blame Tessa's overcomplicated system for cascading failure. Reed had preserved a paper maintenance notice showing no authorized test was scheduled. Brooks collected it but the main proof remained the calibration certificate, connecting the verified baseline stolen gateway and device count. Cross escaped in the Meridian van, carrying Northside's local alarm archive. Without it, the conspirators could argue the clinic failed, because Tessa designed it poorly. The paper notice supported authorization facts, but did not contain device behavior. Tessa asked, which alerts remained stored outside the local archive. Every haptic receiver created a minimal acknowledgement log on the individual device. Those devices belonged to staff, not Meridian's server. Nurses and transport workers surrendered their receivers voluntarily for forensic copying. Together, the distributed logs reconstructed the alert sequence. Invisible workers preserved the truth because the system did not place all authority in one executive machine. Roman watched Tessa thank each employee by name. His administrators had treated those receivers as accessibility expenses. Now they protected patients, workers, and the investigation. "You built evidence into care," he said. "I built confirmation into care. It became evidence because someone lied." Brooks issued warrants for Cross and Lydia based on Reed's statement camera access and recovered logs. Lydia remained at DeLuca Memorial beside Elena's room. She denied knowledge of Cross's actions and claimed Reed invented the promise to protect himself. City officers restricted her access but allowed her to remain with counsel. Ross stayed in custody pending forensic review. At 200A, Elena regained full orientation and requested the trustee vote be postponed. The board charter allowed postponement only if the deciding trustee submitted a verified request through the Alarm Integrated Consent Terminal. That terminal was compromised. Lydia argued the vote must proceed at noon under the existing rule. If Elena could not use the terminal temporary authority transferred to her, Tessa saw how the technical failure became corporate power. Roman asked what independent verification could replace the terminal. The charter permitted 2 clinical witnesses and 1 external safety officer to certify consent during system outage. Dr. Chen Tessa and Inspector Park could provide that pathway. Lydia's attorney challenged Tessa because she had been terminated. The charter required expertise, not employment. Tessa agreed to witness only after Elena requested her by name. Elena looked at her son. "You fired the woman who made sure I could call for help without hearing a bell," she said. Roman answered quietly. "Yes." "Then do not speak for her now." Elena signed the postponement under independent observation. The vote paused for 24 hours. The delay threatened Cross's consulting payment and gave investigators time to authenticate the alarm logs. Minutes later, every haptic receiver used as evidence received a remote erase command. Tessa's wrist device displayed a countdown. Someone still had master control inside the hospital. The countdown made clear that evidence preservation had become the attacker's next target. Tessa refused to press an unknown cancel button simply because the timer created panic. She asked forensic officers to isolate each receiver through approved procedure and document the command first. Urgency would not force the same unreviewed action that allowed Roman to fire her 7 minutes before failure. Tessa instructed every receiver holder to place the device in airplane mode without attempting any unfamiliar control. Forensic officers documented the screens before disconnecting network access. The local logs remained intact. The erase command failed because evidence preservation happened at the individual devices rather than a central server. Brooks traced the command to an administrator account inside the Hospital Interpreter Services office. The office existed outside engineering because communication access required independent control. Tessa had requested that separation years earlier. Only 2 people held master permission, Tessa and Accessibility Director Marisol Vega. Tessa's account ended at 804. Marisol remained inside DeLuca Memorial and had not answered calls since the first alarm flood. Roman feared another missing employee. Police found her in the interpreter studio conscious and working at the master terminal. Marisol admitted sending the erase command. She said Lydia promised to preserve accessibility services after the Meridian sale if she removed logs linking Cross to Northside. Without the promise, Meridian intended to eliminate interpreters and replace multimodal alarms with a cheaper audio-first system. Marisol believed sacrificing one investigation would protect hundreds of patients later. Tessa rejected the false choice. You protected the program by destroying the workers who proved it mattered. Marisol surrendered her access and agreed to cooperate. Her decision caused harm, but revealed the pressure created by the sale. Lydia used threatened job losses to recruit insiders while presenting consolidation as efficiency. Brooks obtained messages connecting Lydia to Marisol's command and Cross's false test. The evidence now showed direction, benefit, and counteraction. Cross remained missing with the local archive. Ross claimed he acted under Lydia's instruction after she threatened to expose billing fraud in his department. His confession explained motive without excusing sabotage. The hospital board scheduled a public safety hearing before the postponed trustee vote. Lydia would argue that Tessa's complex system created vulnerability and that Meridian offered centralized control. Tessa prepared to explain why centralized control was the vulnerability the conspirators exploited. She did not build a defense around her deafness alone. She built it around patient safety, multimodal confirmation, distributed evidence, and professional accountability. Roman offered to stand beside her. "Stand where the board places you," she said. "Do not turn my authority into your protection." He accepted the correction. At dawn, he released a statement acknowledging he approved her termination minutes before the failure. He named Lydia and Ross's reports as influences but did not hide behind them. He also disclosed that his preference for silent VIP floors had overridden Tessa's warnings. The statement damaged confidence in his leadership before the board vote. It gave Tessa no money title or romantic obligation. It simply placed responsibility where it belonged. Tessa's Denver employer confirmed her flight and director role remained available despite publicity. She planned to leave after the hearing. Roman did not ask her to reconsider. His restraint demonstrated autonomy, respect, when dependence would have been easier. Before the hearing, Inspector Park compared the certificate with distributed receiver logs. Every device listed at 340 appeared in the reconstructed sequence except one. Receiver H17 belonged to Roman's private security liaison. Its absence created the only gap between the initial false screen status and the alarm flood. The liaison, Victor Saye, had managed Roman's protection for 12 years. He also sat beside Roman during Tessa's termination meeting. Saye claimed his receiver was lost during the elevator failure. Parking footage showed it clipped to his belt afterward. Brooks requested the device. He refused without a warrant and left the hospital through the family garage. Roman started to order private men after him, then stopped. He provided Brooks with Say's vehicle information and allowed public officers to proceed. The choice separated accountability from revenge. Police traced Say to Meridian's river warehouse. Cross's van stood outside. Thermal cameras showed 2 people inside and several active alarm devices. Brooks secured a warrant and entered with city officers. Cross and Saye attempted to destroy the local archive, but were detained without injury. Receiver H17, the archive. Drive Lydia's tablet backup and the missing security badge were recovered. The archive showed Say used Tessa's badge after termination to remove the gateway from the safety lab. Cross used Lydia's tablet to generate false central status. Ross configured the system and concealed physical indicators. Marisol attempted to erase distributed proof. Lydia coordinated the plan to gain Eleanor's vote and complete the sale. Each insider held one part, allowing everyone to claim no single action created the crisis. The calibration certificate unified those parts against a verified baseline. At 1000 a.m., Lydia entered the public hearing under investigation, but retained counsel and her board seat. She looked across the auditorium at Tessa. "You could not hear one alarm that night," she said. Tessa activated the interpreter display, so every communication mode remained available, and you could not silence the evidence. The caption screen preserved both statements for the hearing record. Lydia's attorney asked that Tessa's testimony be limited because she had not personally heard the alarms. Inspector Park objected that safety analysis depended on device behavior records and physical confirmation rather than one witness's hearing. Tessa added that several hearing employees heard sounds that the central system falsely labeled harmless. No individual sense contained the whole event. The truth survived because workers compared channels instead of ranking people by which channel they used. Roman requested that the objection and response remain in the public transcript. He did not ask to speak for Tessa. He ensured the room could not quietly erase the logic after the hearing ended. The hearing room included spoken microphones, live captions, sign language interpreters, visual timers, and written exhibits. Tessa required every mode because accessibility was not a private accommodation hidden behind the main event. It was part of accurate public process. Lydia's attorney opened with Roman's termination order and Ross's report describing Tessa's system as redundant. He argued the failure resulted from excessive layers interacting unpredictably. He displayed a photograph of Tessa signing the calibration certificate and suggested she certified her own defective design. Inspector Park testified that the inspection was independent and that every listed device passed at 340. The certificate carried Park's seal, paper count, and handwritten totals. Tessa then explained the system in plain language. Audible alarms served people who heard them. Visual alarms served people watching them. Vibration receivers served staff moving between rooms and people who could not rely on sound. Central displays helped coordinate response. Physical confirmation determined whether a patient and device were actually safe. No layer was supposed to replace the others. The sabotage succeeded temporarily because executives trusted the central green screen over contradictory physical facts. The redundant layers did not create failure. They preserved enough independent truth to expose it. Tessa presented the certificate's timeline. The gateway remained secured in the safety lab during inspection. Say removed it using her disabled badge after termination. Ross configured unauthorized control. Cross-generated false status through Lydia's tablet. Covered indicators concealed local warnings. The false evacuation acknowledgement framed Tessa. Distributed receivers preserved the north side sequence when the archive disappeared. The proof's plot function linked every operational step to the verified baseline. Its character function demonstrated that Tessa's professional system anticipated conflicting information before anyone attacked it. Lydia interrupted. "You are turning your disability into authority over an entire hospital." Tessa looked toward the board. "My authority comes from clinical safety training, 6 years of system knowledge and the evidence before you. My deafness taught me not to confuse one communication channel with universal truth. That lesson protected hearing patients too." The response changed the room without asking pity. Roman remained silent until the board invited him. He admitted approving the termination because Tessa's visible safeguards disturbed wealthy patients and challenged his image of quiet control. "I treated accessibility as her personal need instead of infrastructure everyone depended on," he said. "I gave Lydia and Ross the absence their plan required." Lydia accused him of sacrificing his sister for a nurse he desired. Roman did not answer the romantic accusation. "Desire cannot authenticate a certificate or reconstruct an alarm sequence," he said. He returned the focus to Tessa's evidence, rather than making her value depend on his feelings. Brooks presented the recovered archive device logs, messages, and witness statements. Each required further legal authentication, but together they gave the board sufficient grounds to stop the sale and remove compromised access. Elena appeared by secure video under independent clinical approval. She withdrew every temporary proxy granted to Lydia and requested a full external audit. The deciding trustee vote vanished. The board cancelled the Meridian transaction. It suspended Lydia, Ross, Marisol, Say, and Cross from all hospital authority pending separate proceedings. City investigators detained the individuals covered by warrants. No one promised exact convictions or treated cooperation as automatic forgiveness. What changed immediately was their ability to control patients, alarms, records, staff, and property. The board asked Tessa whether reinstatement and back pay would correct her termination. "It would correct my payroll," she said. "It would not correct the power that allowed one family meeting to remove the only person challenging a system-wide risk." She proposed an independent clinical safety and accessibility office. Its director would control alarm standards, physical audits, multimodal communication, shutdown authority, and incident review. The office would report to the full board and external regulators, rather than engineering donor relations or the DeLuca family. Its director would hold hiring power, a voting seat, audit access, and the right to refuse every family order. Night workers and disabled employees would elect 2 oversight representatives. No executive could remove a safety specialist during an unresolved warning without independent review. The board approved the structure before asking whether Tessa would lead it. The reform would exist even if she boarded her Denver flight. Tessa requested the final contract in writing and left the auditorium. Roman followed only as far as the public corridor. "What do you want?" she asked. "To apologize without asking you to stay." He apologized for calling redundancy wasteful, allowing staff to weaponize her deafness, and choosing silence over verified safety. "I cannot return the authority I helped erase," he said. Tessa held up the board resolution. "You already stopped owning the decision. That is why it might become real." Her Denver car waited outside. Tessa left the hospital before choosing whether to return. She needed distance from Roman's regret, Elena's gratitude, and the board's sudden respect. The first draft still allowed the family chair to reduce her budget during a declared financial emergency. Tessa struck the clause. It also placed interpreter contracts under executive procurement, giving the same administration indirect control over her communication access. She moved those contracts into the independent office. Finally, she required public reporting whenever an executive challenged a safety shutdown. The board accepted every revision before knowing whether she would return. Only then did the offer become structural power rather than an emotional reward for saving Roman's family. Tessa traveled as far as the Denver airport before reviewing the DeLuca contract. The National Center for Clinical Safety remained ready to receive her the next morning. Its position offered national influence, stable funding, relocation, housing, and no history of humiliating her in public. The DeLuca office offered damaged systems, resistant executives, and workers whose safety programs could disappear after the scandal faded. Tessa hired an independent attorney to compare the terms. She added a 1-year limit external audit funding, employee-elected oversight, and unconditional authority to leave without repayment or non-compete restrictions. She prohibited Roman Elena or any family member from controlling her interpreters, schedule, hiring, housing, or security. The board accepted every amendment. The National Center offered to convert her Denver position into an external partnership if she chose to build the hospital office. Her freedom exit remained available even while she negotiated another path. Tessa returned to DeLuca Memorial 48 hours after the hearing. She did not enter through the VIP lobby alone. Reed, 2 night nurses, a patient transporter, Inspector Park, and an elected disabled employee representative walked beside her. The board appointed Tessa Director of Independent Clinical Safety and Accessibility. Her authority included system shutdown, alarm certification, hiring, audit access, incident disclosure, a voting ethics seat, and the right to suspend executive access during unresolved safety failures. Roman signed the governance transfer and left before the appointment vote. He could support the structure without influencing who led it. Tessa's first action was not reinstalling every alarm. It was creating a verified physical census of patients, devices, doors, and staff communication needs. Only after reality matched the records did her team reconnect central monitoring. The calibration certificate remained in legal custody, but Inspector Park provided a certified copy for the office wall. Beside it, Tessa displayed the false green work order, carrying her disabled approval. One document showed the system she verified. The other showed how authority attempted to rewrite it. The hospital publicly corrected her termination and named ableist retaliation rather than calling it misunderstanding. It paid lost wages without confidentiality. Reed received restored employment and independent counseling. Northside staff obtained compensation and a direct reporting line outside Meridian-linked management. Marisol entered a disciplinary process that considered both the threat to accessibility services and her choice to erase evidence. Ross Crossay and Lydia faced separate legal, regulatory, and employment consequences. Roman cooperated with every audit of his commands and donor requests. He resigned his unilateral board veto and converted 2 family seats into elected clinical and community positions. The structural surrender remained effective, whether Tessa ever forgave him. Over the next 6 months, her office rebuilt the network around multimodal confirmation rather than prestigious silence. Every critical alarm produced audible visual vibration, local and independently logged signals appropriate to its setting. No central screen could mark a patient safe without physical confirmation after a serious conflict. Night teams practiced failures without being punished for slowing executive routines. Disabled employees helped design systems instead of being invited only after purchase. Tessa conducted drills across every DeLuca clinic with the National Center as external reviewer. The partnership extended her authority beyond one family institution. Roman attended safety briefings as a board member, not as the owner of the room. He used the interpreter and caption systems without making their presence a performance. When he spoke too quickly for accurate interpretation, he corrected himself rather than blaming the channel. Tessa noticed change through repeated behavior rather than one emotional apology. Roman requested meetings through the same process as other executives. Tessa denied his proposals when evidence did not support them. He disagreed without threatening funds or protection. At the 6-month review, he asked to speak with her personally after business hours. Tessa moved the conversation to the public hospital garden. Roman arrived alone and stood where she could see his face clearly. "I would like to invite you to dinner," he said. "What happens if I refuse your authority, budget, safety, and my conduct remain unchanged? Do you ask again? Only if you reopen the question." Tessa studied him. One dinner in a public restaurant. No private room, no security at the next table, and no assumption about afterward. Agreed. He offered his hand within her field of vision and waited. She accepted briefly, because the decision carried no institutional consequence. Their first dinner used a quiet table with clear lighting, not because Tessa required silence, but because both wanted conversation without strain. Roman asked before changing seats so she could read him comfortably. He did not praise himself for basic communication. They discussed Elena's recovery, Reed's new safety role, Tessa's national training work, and Roman's fear of appearing weak when information conflicted. "Control is not the absence of warning," Tessa said. "It is the ability to face one without silencing the person who brings it." Roman remembered the sentence. The next week, he halted a donor event after a night technician reported an unexplained door signal. The event lost money, and the signal proved harmless. He thanked the worker anyway. Tessa learned about the choice from the technician, not Roman. That was the kind of evidence she trusted. Change became credible when it survived without her presence. At the 1-year review, DeLuca Memorial opened its control center to patients, workers, regulators, and community observers. The room no longer resembled the executive bunker Ross once controlled. Captioned displays showed alarm, performance, unresolved conflicts, response times, and physical verification status without exposing patient identities. Visual indicators used clear priorities rather than decorative color. Vibration alerts reached staff according to clinical role instead of prestige. Every alarm could be traced to a person responsible for confirming what happened next. Tessa presented the results in spoken English with live captions and a sign language interpreter beside her. Critical response improved across the network. False escalations decreased because staff could compare channels instead of distrusting all of them. No worker had been disciplined for pausing a process during conflicting safety information. Northside retained night services after the cancelled sale. The National Center adopted Tessa's verification model for 5 additional hospitals. Her professional authority extended far beyond the building that once fired her. Inspector Park returned the original calibration certificate After the court authorized release, Tessa placed it on the evidence table for the final public audit. The handwritten count matched every device recovered from the safety lab Northside Clinic Say's vehicle and the river warehouse. The certificate still did not prove every criminal charge by itself. It proved the verified baseline, the missing gateway, and the precise boundary between a functioning system and a manufactured failure. The distributed logs and witness records explained the actions that followed. Together, they allowed legal and professional bodies to evaluate individual responsibility. Lydia lost her board authority and remained subject to court proceedings connected to conspiracy, unlawful access, and patient endangerment. Ross and Cross lost their hospital roles and engineering contracts while regulators reviewed their conduct. Say faced consequences for credential misuse and evidence removal. Marisol completed an independent disciplinary agreement and later worked outside DeLuca systems under supervision. The court and regulators controlled them. Elena returned to the board as a patient rights representative rather than a family proxy. She used her first vote to make Tessa's office permanent. 2 elected workers and 3 community members joined her. Roman retained 1 seat and no unilateral veto. He did not participate in the vote renewing Tessa's appointment. The board granted her network-wide shutdown authority, hiring control, an independent budget, and a permanent ethics vote. It also transferred ownership of the Clinical Safety Training Institute to an employee cooperative. Tessa accepted after confirming every departure right remained intact. Power did not become autonomy merely because the title sounded impressive. Autonomy required the ability to leave, refuse challenge, and survive disagreement. After the audit, Roman waited in the hospital garden with 2 coffees. He stood beneath the brightest path light where Tessa could see his face. "No sugar," he said. "You remembered. I am learning that details should not become visible only during failure." They had shared 8 dinners by then. He had never treated the first yes as permanent consent. Some evenings ended with a walk. Others ended when Tessa said she needed rest. Their closeness grew through predictability rather than pressure. Roman asked. Before taking her hand, Tessa accepted and guided him toward the control center's public gallery. Inside, a maintenance technician tested an audible alarm. Tessa did not hear the tone, but she saw the visual pattern, felt the receiver pulse, and watched the technician confirm the door response. Roman heard the sound and checked the same other signals. Neither sense outranked the system. "A year ago, I thought perfect quiet meant perfect control," he said. "Quiet can be peaceful. It can also hide the person nobody decided to watch." He nodded. "May I kiss you?" Tessa looked at the man who once approved her removal without ensuring she could answer the accusation. He now stood inside a system where her refusal carried more structural protection than his desire. "Yes," she said. The kiss was brief, chosen, and free of an audience waiting for ownership. When they separated, Roman did not convert the moment into a promise she had not made. They returned to the garden side by side. Tessa's Denver contract remained archived in her personal files. She kept it not because she planned to leave, but because it recorded the moment she had possessed another future. She had returned after Roman released control, the board transferred authority, and the work became worthy of her principles. Her loyalty was chosen because departure remained possible. Her romance was autonomous because refusal remained safe. Her competence had existed long before Roman learned to recognize it. The original full-screen film from Elena's door rested inside the training display beside the calibration certificate. One object showed how easily an institution could hide a warning. The other showed how disciplined workers preserved a truth powerful people preferred not to see. Tessa addressed the final group of trainees before leaving for the evening. A safe system does not assume everyone hears, sees, feels, speaks, moves, or responds in the same way, she said. It builds enough honest channels that no single person can silence danger for everyone. The trainees included nurses, engineers, cleaners, guards, interpreters, patients, and executives. No one sat in a privileged front row. Outside, the hospital windows glowed white against the city. Audible visual vibration, human and recorded signals remained ready beneath the calm surface. Tessa had not become valuable when the alarms failed. Their failure merely forced the institution to recognize the authority it had depended on all along. Roman walked beside her without directing the path. If dignity requires a person to surrender the right to leave, the system has not earned loyalty. If protection requires silence, it has not earned trust. And if love cannot survive a clear no, it was never love worth choosing.